Hello and welcome everyone to American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. I'm Madeline, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. For, for those of you that are familiar with DreamBank, welcome back. And for those of you that this is your first time joining us, welcome. Here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank. Oh my goodness, I can't even speak today. As an inspirational community destination and digital experience dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's something for every dreamer. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. Now, I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker. Dr. Shilagh Mirgain is a distinguished psychologist specializing in health and sports psychology at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health. A sought-after speaker, writer, facilitator, and therapist, Shilagh is a frequent contributor on CBS 3 News in Madison and Wisconsin Public Radio. She writes, speaks, and specializes in treatment on mind-body skills to foster optimal health and optimal performance. All right, Shilagh, take it away.
Thank you so much, Maddie and DreamBank. It's such an honor to be with all of you today. Welcome. I'm so thrilled that you're spending part of your Thursday with me. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, it's always great to see who's here. I see Beverly, welcome. You're from Washington, D.C., and feel free to just introduce yourself in that chat. Today's topic is on getting and growing grit. And you can think about for yourself, what brought you here today? When we think about the term grit, what comes to mind? What kinds of words or images or definitions or experiences really resonate for you when you think of that word grit? And then you can think about, where do you need a little more grit? We're going to work on that grit skill, building that grit muscle. And as always in these DreamBank series, what are some of those dreams that you're holding near and dear to your heart that you would like to work towards with a little more grit? We also see welcome John from Green Bay. Woohoo! Go Packers. And Patty from Crystal Springs, Mississippi. Yeah, your town. I love the name of your town, Crystal Springs. And Joe, you're talking, UK. I love this international community of dreamers that are coming together here. And for you, Joe, it sounds like grit is resilience and purpose. So when we think about grit, and I love this acronym, GRIT, guts, resilience, initiative, tenacity. Here are some of the words that are associated, and they're kind of some fun ones like spunk, fortitude, moral fiber, steel, strength, backbone, metal, pluck, bravery, courage, hardiness, determination. So in your own mind, think about, what is your definition of grit? So we want to look at some of the research, and Angela Lee Duckworth has written a lot about this topic, and she actually has a word, grit, and she talks about it as two components. Grit is where passion meets perseverance. And in study after study, she found that where talent counts once, effort counts twice. That is really remarkable. Thinking about what you can achieve through effort is much more than just what you come to the table with in terms of talent. And research suggests that in reality, intelligence is only 30% of the reason people are successful. Talent is only 30% of the reason why we succeed. And that's backed up by different studies. And all of these have found that those who stick it out, who push forward, are much more likely to succeed. In the book Grit, Angela Duckworth talks about a study of people running on a treadmill, and they were followed up several decades later. The gist? People who stayed on the treadmill longer ended up more mentally adept later in their lives. She points out, though, that getting off the treadmill is when you can actually start showing your grit. Making the choice to get back on the next day is how you display perseverance. And then getting back on the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So that is what we're going to be looking at. Kind of how do we get back on taking action? How do you develop that stick-to-it-ness to try again and try again and try again. So when we think about that stick-to-it-ness, you can again just do a little assessment here. Do you have difficulty sticking to your long-term goals? Maybe you get consistently distracted by new ideas and projects. Do you stop showing up when things get difficult? Do you procrastinate and give up? And what is wonderful about these questions, and if you find yourself saying, yeah, Shilagh, yeah, I struggle here and there, we can work on grit. It's really just a skill, kind of like a muscle that we're going to strengthen during this session and give you maybe some home practices to keep strengthening your stick-to-it-ness and your grit. So we're going to look at 4 different aspects of grit and how to grow it through pursuing your interests and passions, that notice of practice, 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 and practice again, connecting with a higher purpose, and finding gritty people. So let's start with the first one, pursuing your interests and passions. So I think about in any journey where we're working towards a big dream, we often have this moment where there's a call to adventure, a call to start out, to set sail. And I think about the work of Joseph Campbell and his work on the hero's or heroine's journey. That whenever we're dreaming of a big goal, it takes a little bit of courage to set sail. And sometimes these dreams keep knocking at our door, saying, please remember me. Please take some time to start working on me. Please develop some grit to not give up and keep pursuing it. And one of the reasons I love working with DreamBank is I think we live it at a time where there is a lot of helplessness and hopelessness, and people are stuck in despondency and despair and getting stuck in a rut. And we need dreamers right now to shine that light that more is possible than we realize. We need people to awaken to some of those calls to adventure and to just take that next step in that direction of their dream. Some of those small steps that over time can lead to profound results. So just a little bit about my personal dream, one of the ones I was reflecting last night that I feel just most proud of achieving. When I was in college, I had that call to adventure. And I was pretty out of shape, to be honest. And I gained that freshman 15 that often happens your freshman year. And that summer in between my freshman and sophomore year, I met a group of women in their early 40s, and they were fit. And what they were doing is that they were training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. And they had me work out with them. I went for a run, and they actually did some rock climbing, and I struggled. And the run, I was last and huffing and puffing. But there's something about them, that magnetic magic, that boldness of dreaming to climb a mountain really inspired me. And as a result, I thought, gosh, one day too, I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And it kind of planted that seed. It was that kind of call to adventure. I had to go back to college and go back to the gruel of studying. But however, that dream kept knocking at my door. So as you think about that call to adventure, you can think about what are some ways to ignite that sense of purpose. And sometimes we have to do a little bit of soul searching around just thinking about in our lives what fascinates us. Maybe we need to get outside our box and try some different things, to maybe meet other people that might inspire us and tell us something ignites, something sparks that, yeah, this is something I want too. So you can think about in your own life, what ignites that inner spark? What makes you feel most alive? What are things that maybe you're longing to achieve in this lifetime? It could be in the next month, next day, next year, next decade. If you think about on your 90th birthday, what do you want to be celebrated for? What experiences do you want to tell those around you that you achieved? And I think sometimes what can help ignite our passion is actually something around jealousy. That when we feel jealous or envious of others, we can think, what did they have that maybe I lost touch of or I gave up on, that maybe I want to start to work towards? So sometimes that thinking about that can help us, again, find that passion and purpose rooted within ourselves. And when we're really trying to find this call to adventure, I love the work of Julia Cameron. And this was something I was doing back in college, and that was setting a weekly artist date where you go out and just be creative in whatever way feels good for you. These people in the image are running along the beach. That's their artist date. Maybe you create something like a painting or woodworking, or maybe you work on cars, or you're tending a garden or caring for a grandchild. And I love this quote: don't ask what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. So thinking about that also might help you hear and tend to that call to adventure. And I think about these things as a kind of like a northern star we steer by. Now, I love this TED Talk. It's by Adam Leipzig, Leipzig. And so this is what he has. So I'm just quoting kind of his TED Talk. And what he did is he did this really cool exercise. He gave you 5 minutes to help you find your life purpose. And we're not going to spend a full 5 minutes doing this, but what he did is he had the audience go through these questions. And I think they're good ones. And you can always go back to that TED Talk to spend a little more time with it. But he had people in the audience shout out answers. So behind your computer or tablet or smartphone, you could even shout out those answers, or just think about them as I say these questions. So the first question: who are you? And just think about what comes to mind. Who are you? What comes to mind? One of those first few things. And then what do you have to do? What do you just have to do? What are you supremely qualified to teach others? And what are you an expert in and in love with? What do you just in your soul have to do? Then you can think about the next question: what do you do that for? Who do you do that for? Who do you do that for? For what do you do that for? It's that kind of deeper purpose behind doing that. And then what need or want is this fulfilling for the people that you are doing this for? What need or want is this fulfilling for the people that you are doing this for? And then lastly, how do others change or transform based on what you give? How do others change or transform based on what you give? So what we're kind of really coming into as we find our purpose is that sense of value, what we have, and of what within us, that kind of deep gladness or that deep value meets the tremendous need of the world. That often is, again, that spark to set off in that adventure, and can be some of that fuel we need to tap into to achieve those big, bold dreams. So as we start to kind of think about, okay, what is a dream I want to work towards? What is that call? What kind of value or purpose would it tap into? And what might it give to others? Then I think it's really important to set your intention. In particular, when we're setting our intention, it can be helpful to have some sort of image representing it. Could be like a little dream map that we have. Could be a reminder in our calendar or phone. It could be an object representing it. And in particular, start to think about the end in mind. And in particular, imagine how it will feel when you achieve this. When I'm working with my athletes, I always have them imagine finishing the race or the game or the meet, and not so much on the outcome of how many points or the time they had, but in particular, how they felt when it was over. We're always having them focus on feeling good, feeling powerful, feeling satisfied, feeling accomplished. And so we can think about starting with the end in mind. And then that notion of start to act as if it's already yours, speak as if it's already exists. So my example here, About, goodness, I want to say 8 years ago, I decided, okay, nearing my 40s, I got to start working on this goal of Kilimanjaro. And I saw this image in a local newspaper of two people who they're high school students actually, who had summited Mount Kilimanjaro. So I cut out the picture and I thought, gosh, if these high school students can do it, I can do it. And so I had it posted in one of my rooms, and every day I looked at it and I said, thank you for letting me reach the summit. Thank you for letting me reach the summit, kind of acting as if it had already happened. Thank you, I've reached the summit. So again, we're thinking of this call to the adventure, finding our purpose, setting our intention, and then we start to do the hard work. And I love, again, from Grit, that book, Grit, that notion of you get off the treadmill, but it's the grit is getting back on the next day. So thinking about the hard work, practice, the desire to improve, thinking about, I am here today, but who can I be tomorrow? Who can I be the next day? What can I achieve if I keep working at it? And getting really excited about our potential. There may be some areas of weakness. And again, we're really not competing with anyone else. We're competing with who we were yesterday. And this notion of trying to stick with it for even a little bit longer than you want to, and challenging yourself. So just even a little bit, even if it's 30 seconds longer, sometimes when we get anxious and stressed, we tend to avoid, procrastinate. And this is this notion of leaning in and taking action. And this notion of just tracking bit by bit by bit. As a sports psychologist, I'm often encouraging people to keep a success log, like after a practice, writing one good thing that went well, or one little thing that went better today than it did yesterday, as a way to really encourage ourselves and keep with it. So I had made this dream of climbing Kilimanjaro, and I thought, I got to train. And I live here in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's pretty darn flat here in Madison. So some people told me about a ski jump as being a good place to practice. So I took myself to the ski jump, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is where I'm supposed to train. And it's you can kind of see in the picture, there are these rickety stairs. And I climbed out and I thought, oh my goodness, there's a railing, but it's not a great railing. And I thought, I don't know about this. And I climbed to the top and I thought, man, I'm supposed to do this over and over and over. And you can see here how steep it is. And I thought, I don't know about this. I might break a bone while I'm training. Well, it turned out that I was in the upper portion of the ski jump. And there was actually a lower portion that was much safer, as you can see here. There were good wooden steps, a good railing. The incline was less steep. So fortunately, after I did that first one or two times, somebody pointed out there was a lower staircase, and that's where I trained. So so there is a really cool grit scale that I want to recommend that you check out after this presentation. Here are the questions. We're not going to really go through them, but it's on Angela Duckworth's site. So in the next slide, I'll show them. But you can you rate yourself on these various questions, like I am a hard worker. I often set a goal, but later choose to pursue a different one. Setbacks don't discourage me. New ideas and projects sometimes distract me from previous ones. I have difficulty maintaining my focus on projects that take more than a few months to complete. Because it might be helpful just to do that assessment around where you're at with grit right now, especially related to those big, bold dreams that you have. Here are some of the other ones. I finish whatever I begin. My interests change from year to year. I'm diligent. I never give up. I've been obsessed with a certain idea project for a short time, but later lost interest, and I've overcome setbacks to conquer an important challenge. So and here's the link at the angeladuckworth.com, and it's a grit-scale. Think about checking that out for yourself. So when we are working on just action, taking action can be really helpful to foster a growth mindset. There's a great book by Carol Dweck called Mindset that really dives into this topic. And this is a concept I use a lot in my work as a sports psychologist with athletes. And in particular, I love the word yet. Like, I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't gotten there yet, because it implies that it's possible and that we're still a work in progress. So in particular with mindset, we want to focus a growth mindset. We want to foster a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Growth is really excited about our potential. It celebrates mistakes as learning opportunities. It doesn't shy away from challenges because it allows us to strengthen that fortitude within us. It's inspired by others' successes, saying that could be me too. And there's a sense of ability to learn new things, because if a person has a growth mindset and they fail or they don't do well, it's no big deal. It's just one day in time. But they have that awareness through hard work, a lot's possible. Versus somebody who has a fixed mindset feels like, oh, my ability is only so much. And if I fail, then everyone's going to know I'm not good enough, which is a lie. So it really, with people with a fixed mindset, they tend to not have grit. They avoid challenges, avoid failure, give up easily, and feel like, what's happening to me is unchangeable, which again is not true. Excellent. I see Beverly. I see that you said the book helped you change your mindset, and you relate. Wonderful. It's been helpful in most situations. Excellent. And Patty, thanks for the recommendation. When you go to the website, click on the view. Okay, wonderful. I think that was in the message to another person. So excellent. Thanks, Beverly, for that shout out for the book. I know it was a life changer for me as well. Okay, so perseverance. And when we think about, like, if we use a mountain climbing example, and probably most people here aren't wanting to climb mountains. I personally don't ever need to climb another mountain in my life, but just imagine that, you love mountain climbing, and one day you set out to summit a peak you've been admiring for years. But when you get close to that base, that mountain base, it's surrounded by a swamp. This is a big surprise. No one told you about the swamp. You realize you have to trudge through this icky mess before you can even start your climb. You don't like the situation, but you have to suck it up and wade through the swamp because getting to the top of the mountain is really important to you. Can we relate to that? All of us have things that are important. Families, careers, causes. However, we will inevitably have times when we face challenges, negative emotions related to those things that we want to experience, achieve, accomplish in our life. There could be uncertainty about our careers, worry about our loved ones. Could be anger towards those who don't support our cause. But if these things really matter to us, we persevere. And I think this is a really important point, that sometimes we have to wade through that swamp of challenges, negative emotions to get to that mountaintop. So that is just part and parcel of living that full life and achieving those dreams. If you look at any of those epic heroine journey, like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, or all those ones, even some of those cartoons, there's always a point where that hero goes through that path of trial and tribulation. And that's what makes it in the end so worthwhile. So I think about that, just being prepared again with that hero's journey, Joseph Campbell model. There is that path of trials and tribulations. So here I am beginning the journey, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And this was about 7 years ago. And often it is the beginning is the easiest. But you can, sometimes I think about it as a labyrinth. When you walk in a labyrinth, you can see that you go really close at the beginning to the end. Then you have to go way out and kind of circle around and circle until finally you're back in that ending. And sometimes that's like that with working on these goals. And I think about sometimes like a sword forged in fire is the strongest. Sometimes we go through kind of alchemical transformation. But I think of those who have walked through the fire leave sparks of light everywhere they go to guide others. So when we think about, again, we're in that place, and this is the work from acceptance and commitment therapy. And we think about, how do we just stay resilient in the face of those swamp adversity, troubles and tribulations, trials and tribulations? We can think about there are these choice points that we can get hooked by the struggle and start to move away and procrastinate and give up. Or we can start to do these towards moves, even taking action after action after action. And one of the things that can really guide us in those towards moves can be going back to that purpose. So let's think about those things that get us off course, moving away from outcomes you want, maybe behaving unlike the person you want to be, being ineffective, starting to shut down, and engaging in unhealthy habits, engaging in that self-criticism. We can think about, again, what kind of hooks me and what gets me off track. And here are some of those common triggers. Sleep deprived anxiety, again, we tend to avoid. Discouraging people, failure, self-criticism, anger, shame is a big one. Embarrassment, lack of support, feeling depleted, sense of loss. Can also be automatic negative thoughts. And sometimes I think about it as those negative thoughts, kind of if I had them here, they kind of start to get closer and closer and closer. They can be really loud, so that's all that I see. And what would it be like if we're going around just looking at those negative thoughts through life? We wouldn't see very much. We'd miss out on this presentation. And so how do we start to defuse from some of these negative thoughts? And let's talk about that. So, our mind can hook us. We might have, when we think about going towards a dream, and sometimes it gets challenging, what does your mind say? What kind of self-criticism? It might say like, oh, you're not enough, you're not good enough, or who are you to think you can accomplish this, or other people have it easier, you don't. And when you get hooked by that negative thinking, how does your behavior change when you get hooked? And what do you do? And what do those actions cost you? And how might you manage to unhook yourself? So I want you to think about what thoughts stand in your way. These negative thoughts that stand in your way of achieving your dreams, or even going in the direction of those things that create purpose or value. And we see here this cartoon from Acceptance and Commitment Therapy from Russ Harris, the work of Russ Harris. You can see kind of those negative thoughts can kind of almost create like a little Halloween monster here that's blocking our path. But what would it be like to just take them, and we can think about what do they cause you to avoid? Might start to go in loops, this emotional avoidance detour that gets in our way. And instead, thinking about how can you take them along for the ride? They might be in the back seat, buckled in, but we're the one driving. And you can choose instead your attention towards just taking the next step, and the next step, and the next step in the direction of those dreams and those values you want to experience and express. So as I said, I signed up to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And when I signed up, I was so excited. I had trained, as you know, I had some gear and I was ready to go. And about a month before, the tour company said, Shilagh, we don't have anyone else signed up for the tour. I said, we don't have anyone else? And they said, not to worry, we're still going to run it. So I ended up going on my own and had a bunch of guides helping me. And it was, a little intense to be there by myself, hiking and climbing the mountain. And this is an image of when it started to get hard. As we know, Mount Kilimanjaro is quite high, and I don't do well in altitude, and I'm starting to struggle here. And one of the things I did was I started blessing people, walking a portion of the path for them. I did like the next half an hour, I'm going to dedicate it to this person. For the next half an hour, I'm going to do this, sending well wishes for this person who's struggling. And I even did people that I wanted to do some forgiveness work around, forgiving them, releasing kind of the hurt or anger and wishing them well. And that really helped me keep that value, that purpose front and center, that I was doing it for me, but also for so many other people. So, so bringing some mindful awareness to the kind of thinking that we're having, like, oh, you might even label it, that's an unhelpful thought. That's an unhelpful thought. Those negative automatic thoughts can be like little gnats flying around. And instead of getting so distracted by the gnat, we might notice it, but then just let it be there. And then think about it instead of like this struggle, this analogy from acceptance and commitment therapy and the work of Russ Harris, self-doubt, fear, unworthiness, struggle. What would it be like just to drop the struggle? Just let those little thoughts, it kind of freeze us, and then we can redirect that energy again and just getting out of our head back into our life and taking action. Another way we can defuse from some of these automatic negative thoughts. We might say that thought in a cartoon voice, or sing it like an opera singer would, or a little child's voice, or an alien from a different planet, or from somebody from a different country, or even a comedian telling a joke with it. And you can even thank the mind, like, oh, it's just my mind making noise. It's just noise, but I'm here and now in this moment, and I can take action. I can redirect, not get so hooked by these thoughts, and taking action. And in particular, doing towards moves. So moving towards the outcome you want. Just taking action in the direction of that goal, expressing the value you want to live by, and even tapping into the skills and strengths that you can use. So, and maybe even engaging in a healthy habit, or just being kind to yourself in this moment. So we're using this kind of notion that these values are like guiding lights or compass that we can steer by, that help guide us and really strengthen. So we're doing it not just for ourselves, but doing it from people, so many more people than us, who will be inspired by what we're doing, or even just benefit from the work we're doing in that ripple effect. So here I am at 15,000 feet, and this was a prayer cairn. And one of the guides walked me up there and circumambulated and leave a rock. And so I am just making prayers for others at that height. And my guide actually ended up passing away a few years ago from a motorcycle accident. So I'd like to think that the prayers we said up there, are still with him on the other side. So this notion of getting out of your head and into your life, and in particular, really mindfulness, can be helpful. A simple practice is 2 feet, 1 breath, can get you again out of that autopilot mode, out of that negative thinking, back into, where am I at now? Instead of hooked by that, where do I want to go? What is one thing again I can do? So the 2 feet, 1 breath practice. And also just engaging in self-care, making sure your tank is at least half full. Instead of focusing on a half empty, what can you do to just keep it half full? And also as adults, just even some time to play. I think sometimes when we're working on a large dream, we feel like a just drudgery, work. And sometimes we actually do the best work when we give ourselves a break. We engage in some play, and often that's where we come up with some of our best ideas. I don't know if it was Einstein, I think it was, who played violin, and that's often where he came up with some of his best ideas. It was some scientists like that. And sometimes just taking a little rest, just taking a nap, doing something mindless can also help us recharge so we can get back at it the next day. And being kind to yourself. Again, often we think we're going to go further, faster, farther if we are harsh on ourselves, if we're criticizing ourselves. And that is rarely the case. We want to treat ourselves like we would somebody else struggling, with some words of kindness. So you can think about what phrases would be good to hear in that moment when you're maybe struggling, you're feeling nervous, you're starting to lose some tenacity, you're falling off the path. What do you need to say to yourself to pick yourself back up and get right back on track? If you have a fumble or failure, what do you need to hear to try again? So what phrases would be good to hear? You might even jot that down. So we just worked on number 1, that call to adventure. Number 2, that practice, action, hard work. And then number 3, just thinking about connecting with a higher purpose and thinking about what you do, how it might benefit people around you in ways you might not even imagine. People who connect what they do to a higher purpose are grittier. It's not enough to have a compelling interest. You also have to take a step back and understand how what you do contributes to the well-being of others. It's not only useful for increasing your grit, it also helps you enjoy the task more. So think about, what value can this provide others? What is that higher purpose? And often when we do that, again, if we're here is another wonderful cartoon from ACT and the work of Russ Harris, that we're driving our life. We might have all the pain, the suffering, the challenge along for the ride, but we're driving it. We're making room for the discomfort, opening up, but we're driving ourselves in that larger purpose. And we can think about just expanding, just allowing whatever arises can be there. We don't have to struggle with it. Again, that kind of the struggle makes us stronger, but just allowing room for it and letting it be there, even if it's unpleasant. And just allowing it, like I think of young children who have emotions. I have a young daughter and she gets upset and it rarely lasts for a minute, just because she allows it to flow through her. So in the same way, just okay, whatever struggle flows through, and then you can invest your time and energy to doing those meaningful life enhancing activities, taking that action. And here I am, probably higher up on the mountain, 16,000 feet. And I love this, this quote by Angela Lee Duckworth: "Grit is sticking with your future day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it is a marathon, not a sprint." Okay. And I think in that sense of cultivating hope that things can change, that we can, the field of neuroplasticity says that we can change our brain and learn new skills throughout our life, that neuroplasticity, and we can shape our brain through effort and experience. Okay, and lastly, surround yourself with gritty people. The people around you have a huge influence on your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And when you spend enough time with a particular group of people, the way they do things becomes the way you often do things. Their norms and values will rub off on you and become your new standard. So surround yourself with gritty people. Create positive peer pressure, so to speak. When you spend time with gritty people, it's only a matter of time when you yourself become just like them and gritty. And whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So think you can. And I think about this, beware the crab bucket. If you want to keep crabs all together and not run away, you put them in a bucket. And when one crab tries to leave, the other crabs pull that crab down back into the bucket. So we want to be aware of those negative Nellies, the people who say, oh, well, what if this happens? Or I don't know about that. There are often people who have given up on their dreams. Instead, look for the people who kind of provide a ladder to get you out of that bucket. And we look at, here I am very high up on the mountain and probably around 18,000 feet, and some guides who were helping me. And the summit day, I had to wake up at like 2 a.m. and start summiting towards the top. And it was rough. It was take a breath, take a step, take another breath, take another step. And my lungs were screaming, my body was saying, no, you can't. And a good friend of mine said, Shilagh, it's all mental at the top. Don't listen to your body. Listen to your mind and say, you can do it. Just take another step, take another step, take another step. Well, about 3 weeks before my trip, I was at a sporting goods store buying gear. And I was talking to the sales clerk, and she had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro too. And she said to me, Shilagh, are you camping at Glacier Point? And I said, Glacier Point? I didn't even know I could camp. She said, yeah, it's at the top. Near the summit, there's a glacier. And oftentimes people will summit and then camp there. So I called the company, and about 3 weeks before my trip, changed my itinerary so I could. So this random brief interaction with this stranger changed the outcome of this dream. So as I said, I got up at 2 a.m. My guide said, Shilagh, be like a cheetah. Felt more like a zombie, to be honest. It was hard taking that step, taking a breath, taking a step around, and they were trying to support me here as I was going near the top. And it was about 6 p.m. and I hadn't made it to the summit. But because that person at the sporting goods store had told me about that campsite, my guides were all at the top. My crew was all at the top. So they had all my camping gear. Had she not told me, my camp gear would have been at the lower down, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity to summit. So we ended up camping at over 18,000 feet on this little narrow path. You can kind of see it was like a ridge. And I had then the next day an opportunity to summit, thanks to that guide, that salesperson, because the team was up there. They're able to move the gear a little bit lower at this 18,000 foot pass, and we camped. And here I am, having summited at 19,341 feet. And they talk about this area as like a freedom point, that there's a story that there was a Tanzanian and an English person who ran to the top, and whoever got to the top, there would be freedom for Tanzania, or it would remain under English control. And I guess the Tanzanian legend says went to the top and lit the light, and they call it freedom point. And I like to think about when we do achieve these goals, they can actually spark some inner freedom for others to dream bigger, to go for bolder action, to keep trying longer. And in that, moving in the direction of those dreams. And I love this quote: all dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And so my hope is that you have some takeaways around that call to adventure, that sense of purpose and passion, that determination to keep taking action, to connect with that larger purpose, and surround yourself with those gritty people. And my hope is that you'll continue to really keep giving as much as you can to manifesting those dreams that keep dancing around inside of your head. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Maddie in a second. I do have my email here. I always love to hear from people in terms of what dreams are evolving for you, what paths have evolved, what's changing and opening up. Don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to me. And I do have a professional Facebook page, Dr. Shilagh Mirgain. You're welcome to like that professional page. And I think, Maddie, I might be coming back maybe in the summer for another DreamBank talk. So maybe one in the summer and one in the winter we're talking about. So love to have you keep in touch, and maybe I'll see all of you there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I know I have a lot of notes that I have written down, and I feel like grit is kind of the hot topic of the year now. A lot of people, my friends and I, have been talking about just kind of, it feels like life just keeps throwing things at us. And so now how do we tap into that grit? And so I really appreciated this, because I will go back and share some of these things. And even my coworkers and I have been talking about, how do we lean into our grit, because things aren't going to get easier. We just need to get a little tougher. And here at DreamBank too, we often talk about that pursuing your dream is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And how do you continue on that journey? So thank you so much, Carla, for coming on and sharing with us. This has been a fabulous talk, and I am looking forward to seeing you this summer. We are looking at early summer for those of you that are writing this down. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and I hope everyone just has a wonderful rest of their week and can enjoy some of the good weather. But thank you.